I think he'll change. He is committed of his own level of service, and that will remain.
The royal family has survived wars, abdications, and scandals through one unbreakable rule: never complain, never explain. Silence has always been the monarchy's greatest weapon, until now. The person who shattered that silence isn't a journalist or a bitter insider. It's Princess Anne, the most disciplined, respected, and duty-bound member of the House of Windsor. What she has confirmed has sent shockwaves through the royal family, British intelligence circles, and all the way to Montecito, California, where Prince Harry is reportedly furious. The Saudi Dossier is real. For years, it was dismissed as a conspiracy theory invented by royalists who never accepted Meghan Markle. The palace ignored it. The media buried it. Anyone who questioned Meghan's pre-Harry finances, travels, or connections was swiftly labeled a racist or sensationalist. But Princess Anne, whose credibility is unimpeachable, has now confirmed it, and everything is unraveling. Today, we dive deep into what the Saudi Dossier contains, what Anne has revealed, why Harry is reportedly in meltdown, and what it all means for the monarchy's future. This story is more explosive than anything the press has reported so far. The document that was never supposed to exist. To understand why Princess Anne's confirmation is so devastating, you first have to understand what the Saudi Dossier actually is. When Prince Harry began dating Meghan Markle in autumn 2016, the palace's security apparatus kicked into gear. This is standard procedure. Any individual entering a romantic relationship with a senior member of the royal family undergoes a thorough vetting process. Level 3 security clearance, conducted by palace officers working in close coordination with British intelligence services. Normally, these checks are routine. Background history, financial records, criminal associations, potential embarrassments. Most of the time, the file comes back clean, the relationship proceeds, and nobody ever thinks about the vetting again. But with Meghan Markle, something happened that had never happened before. The vetting process flagged something that the security teams could not explain away, something that didn't just raise an eyebrow. It triggered alarm bells across multiple intelligence desks, not just inside Buckingham Palace but within MI5, and connected intelligence agencies. So what was it? What could a cable television actress from Los Angeles possibly have in her background that would send British intelligence services into a quiet panic? The answer was a financial and travel discrepancy so enormous, so statistically impossible, that analysts described it as a glaring contradiction they could not reconcile. Between 2008 and 2012, Meghan Markle was publicly presenting herself as a struggling actress, hustling for auditions in Los Angeles, taking whatever work she could get, living the difficult, uncertain life of someone clawing their way up through Hollywood. Her documented income during this period reflected exactly that: minor roles, brief television appearances. She is most remembered from this era for holding a briefcase on the game show Deal or No Deal, reportedly earning around $800 per episode. This was her public narrative. The underdog, the woman of humble origins who never gave up, the future duchess who inspired millions with her rags-to-royalty story. But the intelligence report told a completely fundamentally different story. The same woman who was supposedly worrying about rent in Los Angeles was simultaneously appearing on Mediterranean super yachts worth tens of millions of dollars. She was attending exclusive private gatherings in Monaco during Grand Prix season and yacht shows, events where a single night in a hotel costs more than most people earn in a month. She was circulating through the closed, invitation-only social circles of Gulf elites, Saudi power brokers, and international financiers. Think about that financial reality for a moment. A first-class flight from Los Angeles to Monaco in 2010 cost approximately $8,000 to $12,000. Hotels in Monaco during peak season, a minimum of $1,000 per night, often significantly more. Designer evening wear appropriate for those events, $5,000 to $20,000 per outfit. Hair, makeup, accessories for those circles, another few $1,000s per event. We're talking about weekly expenses that could easily exceed $50,000. $50,000 for 1 week. Repeatedly, across multiple years, across multiple locations. And crucially, none of this spending appeared anywhere in her financial records. No credit card statements for luxury hotels, no large bank withdrawals for international flights, no receipts for designer gowns. Because someone else was paying, someone else was booking, someone else was ensuring she had everything she needed to look the part and play the role. In intelligence terminology, there is a specific word for this arrangement: handled. The question that Harry could never answer. Princess Anne was reportedly among the first senior royals to review the completed security file. And the people who were present when she read it describe her reaction in very precise terms. Her blood ran cold. Anne has spent over 5 decades in the world of royal service. She understands, better than almost anyone alive, the sophisticated methods used by those who seek to leverage royal connections for financial, political, or geopolitical advantage. She has seen it all: the social climbers, the opportunists, the calculated infiltrations. She has a finely tuned instinct for people whose stated motivations don't match their actual behavior. And everything in that dossier triggered those instincts simultaneously. She looked at the timeline. She looked at the travel logs. She looked at the financial gaps. And she asked the question that nobody else had dared to ask out loud. Who paid for all of this? Because here is the fundamental reality that no amount of PR spin can escape. Struggling actresses do not casually float through elite international power spaces. They do not get invited onto $50 million super yachts. They do not attend invitation-only gatherings of Saudi princes, Russian oligarchs, and international financiers unless someone with enormous resources has placed them there deliberately. Access at that level is never free. It is never accidental, and it is never without expectation. In the intelligence world, unexplained wealth or unexplained access is the single biggest red flag for a potential security compromise. It doesn't necessarily mean someone is a spy in the traditional sense, but it does mean someone is being used, knowingly or unknowingly, as a social asset by powerful interests. Princess Anne understood the term that intelligence analysts use for this practice: strategic social placement. Let us be very clear about what that means, because it is absolutely central to everything that follows. In elite power circles, particularly those connected to Gulf states, international oligarchs, and shadow financial networks, attractive, intelligent, socially adept individuals are sometimes deliberately cultivated and placed in proximity to high-value targets. Not through crude espionage, not through cloak-and-dagger operations, through sophisticated social engineering. You are introduced to the right people. You are invited to the right parties. You are given access to the right rooms. And you are there because someone with power believes that you can serve a function, socially, relationally, or reputationally. Your presence creates opportunities. Your connections open doors. Your discretion is the price of admission. The intelligence assessment described a pattern in Meghan's life that matched this profile with disturbing precision. It wasn't a one-time occurrence. It wasn't a lucky invitation to a glamorous party. It was systematic, repeated, across multiple years, multiple countries, multiple elite circles, all funded by sources that appeared nowhere on any tax return. And so Princess Anne did what she believed any responsible senior royal would do. She sat her nephew down. She put the dossier on the table. And she tried to make him understand what he was walking into. What happened next would fracture their relationship and the family forever. The confrontation that broke everything. Close your eyes for a moment and try to put yourself in Princess Anne's position. You are holding a classified intelligence report. You are looking at your nephew. a young man you have watched grow up, a young man who has suffered tremendous loss, a young man who is genuinely, deeply in love, who believes he has finally found the happiness that has eluded him his entire life. He is planning a wedding that will be watched by billions of people around the world. And you know something he doesn't. You know that the woman he is about to marry fits a very specific profile that intelligence analysts have been tracking and studying for decades. A profile that does not suggest an innocent romance. A profile that suggests something far more calculated and far more dangerous. What do you do? Anne reportedly did not lecture Harry about class, race, or royal protocol. She did not come to that meeting as a snob or a gatekeeper. She came as a woman with access to classified information, with 5 decades of experience navigating power at the highest levels, and with a genuine, desperate desire to protect her nephew from a catastrophe she believed she could see coming. She allegedly laid out the Saudi Dossier and walked him through it page by page. The Mediterranean photographs, the Gulf connections, the financial impossibilities, the social networks, the timeline, the gaps. She explained the concept of strategic social placement in blunt, unambiguous terms. She reportedly told Harry that the photographs in the dossier did not show someone stumbling into elite spaces by accident or luck. They showed someone who was comfortable in those spaces. Someone who understood the hierarchy. Someone who knew exactly how to navigate rooms filled with some of the world's most powerful and dangerous men. And then she said the words that Harry has reportedly never been able to forget or forgive. She hasn't just been dating you, Harry. She's been kept. And people don't keep you in these circles unless you're useful. Now ask yourself this question honestly. If someone you trusted showed you documented evidence suggesting that the person you loved had an unexplained financial history, connections to powerful foreign interests, and a lifestyle funded by sources that nobody could identify, what would you do? Would you look at the evidence? Would you ask questions? Would you at least consider the possibility that something wasn't adding up? Harry didn't. Harry was in love. Harry was certain he had found his destiny. And Harry, who had spent his entire life feeling like a spare, like an outsider, like someone the institution cared about only in terms of what he represented, Harry interpreted the dossier not as protection, but as persecution. He reportedly declared that what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. He viewed the classified intelligence report not as a warning from a security apparatus trying to protect the crown, but as proof that his family was racist, classist, and determined to destroy his happiness at any cost. He buried the report. He dismissed the evidence. He walked directly into the situation that Princess Anne had told him, with documented proof, was a trap. The tragedy of that moment is impossible to overstate. And now, years later, with the revelations that Princess Anne has just confirmed publicly, Harry is reportedly in pieces. Because if the dossier was real, and Anne is now saying unequivocally that it was, then everything he told the world about his family's betrayal looks radically different. He didn't leave because his family failed him. He left because he refused to let his family save him. The man behind the curtain, Marcus Anderson. If the yachts and the Mediterranean circuit were the stage, then there was a director operating behind the scenes. Someone who understood the architecture of elite social access. Someone who knew exactly which doors to open and exactly when. The mainstream media has consistently presented Marcus Anderson as simply Meghan's best friend. A charming, well-connected consultant for the Soho House empire. A loyal confidant who happened to be fabulous at parties. But according to what palace insiders have described of the vetting report's findings, British intelligence viewed Marcus Anderson in a very different light. Not as a companion, as a handler. Why would that word be used? What does the evidence actually show? Marcus Anderson served as Global Membership Director for Soho House, the exclusive private members club network that has become one of the most important nexus points in the world for the intersection of celebrity culture, finance, media, an international power brokerage. But his real skill wasn't hospitality. It was the orchestration of relationships. He understood, with almost surgical precision, who needed to meet whom and how to facilitate those introductions in ways that benefited every party involved. In 2015, 1 year before Meghan met Harry, Anderson orchestrated the grand opening of Soho House, Istanbul. Now, why does Istanbul matter? Because Istanbul is one of the most strategically significant cities on the planet. It sits at the literal and metaphorical crossroads of East and West. It is where European sophistication meets Middle Eastern capital. It is where deals get made that never appear in any official record, where relationships get forged between people who have enormous resources and no interest in public scrutiny. Intelligence sources connected to the palace vetting process allegedly concluded that the Istanbul opening was more than a glamorous launch event. It was a carefully curated environment, a marketplace, in the most transactional sense, where talented, attractive, socially adept individuals were introduced to wealthy patrons who could open doors, fund lifestyles, and create access. And at that event, according to what the dossier reportedly flagged, Meghan Markle was introduced to a specific network of Middle Eastern financiers and Gulf power brokers, the same network that would later appear in connection with those yacht photographs. Here's what makes the Istanbul connection so chilling: the timing. Just months before the introduction to Prince Harry. By that point, according to intelligence analysts who reviewed the file, Meghan would have been fully integrated into the network. She would have understood the unspoken rules. She would have understood the expectations. She would have understood how these relationships operate, what discretion looks like, and what access costs. Istanbul, in the language of intelligence assessment, may have been her graduation ceremony, a signal to the network that she was ready for the next level, that she could be trusted with higher-profile connections, that she understood how to navigate extraordinary social waters without creating turbulence. And now ask yourself, who introduced Harry and Meghan on their famous blind date in London in 2016? Marcus Anderson. Anne finally speaks, and the palace panics. For years, Princess Anne maintained silence. This is who she is. This is what she does. She is the working royal who shows up, does her duty, makes no personal statements, and goes home. She has completed more royal engagements than virtually any other family member over the past decade. She has never sought the spotlight. She has never used her position to settle personal scores, which is precisely why what happened in December 2025 was so unprecedented and so seismic. The setting, according to those present, was deliberate. Not Buckingham Palace, not Windsor Castle, not a formal press briefing coordinated by palace communications teams. Gatcombe Park, Anne's private residence, her sanctuary, the one place where she is entirely herself and entirely free from institutional constraint. The small gathering of carefully selected journalists who were invited to attend described the atmosphere as charged with a tension they had never experienced in a royal context. Anne's hands, normally so steady, so controlled, were reportedly trembling slightly as she held her prepared notes. The strain on her face was described as that of someone who has carried a terrible secret for far too long and can no longer bear the weight of it. She began by saying that she had remained silent because she believed in the institution. She believed in family loyalty. She believed that certain matters should be handled privately. And then she said, "Enough." What she revealed was not a personal grievance. It was not an emotional outburst. It was a structured, documented account of discoveries that she described as going beyond family politics, beyond personal grievances, and directly to the integrity of the crown itself. She confirmed that the security dossier exists, that it was real, that it was presented to Harry before his marriage, and that it contained documented intelligence raising serious questions about Meghan's pre-royal connections to Gulf power networks and the individuals who funded her lifestyle during her years as a struggling actress. She confirmed that Harry was shown this information and chose to dismiss it entirely. And she revealed something else, something that the palace clearly did not anticipate and for which they had no prepared response. Encrypted communications, phone records, documented meetings, a secret coordination between Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew that, according to Anne, had been ongoing since late 2019. Two people who publicly have almost nothing in common, a disgraced prince, stripped of his military titles and royal duties, and a duchess who had relocated to California in search of independence, had allegedly been sharing insider information, coordinating their public narratives, and building what Anne described as a mutual insurance policy against the institution that both of them felt had betrayed them. Can you imagine sitting in that room when those words were spoken? The palace's response, and why, it tells you everything. Within minutes of the news breaking, Buckingham Palace issued a statement. They called Anne's allegations categorically false and deeply irresponsible. That was it. That was all they said. Now here is what I need you to pay close attention to, because the way institutions respond to damaging revelations tells you as much as the revelations themselves. They did not threaten legal action. They did not suggest that Princess Anne was mentally unstable, attention-seeking, or motivated by personal jealousy. They did not provide specific, point-by-point rebuttals of specific, verifiable claims. They chose two words, categorically false, and then they stopped. Why? Because Princess Anne is not a tabloid journalist who can be dismissed with contempt. She is not an anonymous source who can be labeled unreliable. She is not an estranged family member who can be written off as bitter and attention-hungry. She is the Princess Royal. She has served the crown with unimpeachable dedication for over 50 years. She is, by any credible measure, one of the most respected and trusted members of the royal family. You cannot simply wave away her credibility. So the palace chose the only strategy available to them, a blunt denial, carefully worded, with no specifics and no legal follow-through. Meghan's team was more aggressive, calling Anne's claims complete fantasy and desperate attention-seeking. But again, notice the strategy. They attacked Anne's credibility and her motivation. They did not address the dossier. They did not explain the financial discrepancies. They did not account for the Mediterranean photographs, or the Gulf connections, or the Istanbul introduction. And Andrew's lawyers released a statement saying that Anne's characterization was misleading and taken out of context, but notably did not deny all contact with Meghan. Taken out of context. That phrase is doing enormous work, because taken out of context does not mean it didn't happen. It means it happened, but Anne is interpreting it incorrectly, which is, when you think about it, a remarkable thing to concede in a denial. The legal earthquake. Behind the scenes, the institutional response has been far more dramatic than the carefully worded public statements suggest. According to sources close to the palace, King Charles immediately convened emergency meetings with senior courtiers and legal advisors in the immediate aftermath of Anne's revelation. The questions being asked were both practical and existential. What exactly does Anne have? Because until they understand the full extent of her documented evidence, they cannot craft an adequate response. How do they contain the story? In an era of social media and 24-hour global news cycles, the traditional palace strategy of controlled messaging has already been overwhelmed. Within the first 10 minutes of the story breaking, there were over 1 million social media interactions. The topic reached #1 worldwide on X in under 8 minutes. There are also deeper, more troubling legal questions circulating in palace corridors. If Andrew did share confidential information about royal operations without authorization, what are the legal implications? Palace lawyers are reportedly examining this question carefully, though the prospect of legal action against a senior member of the royal family creates its own set of catastrophic complications. Meanwhile, the Royal Legal Council convened an emergency session to address the unprecedented challenge of dismantling the terms of the existing constitutional arrangements around those involved. legal territory that, according to constitutional historians, hasn't been seriously explored in centuries. The lead solicitor reportedly assigned to navigate these proceedings is Sir Gavin Milland, described as one of Britain's most respected constitutional lawyers. The legal framework being constructed is extraordinarily complex. It involves titles, housing arrangements, access to royal funds, public responsibilities, and succession implications. Financial penalties for breach of any agreed terms, reportedly as high as £5 million, have reportedly been insisted upon personally by Prince William. One source close to William's communications team described the driving principle behind his position with brutal simplicity: no more shaping history to suit anyone else's agenda. Prince William draws the line. The morning that changed everything began, according to palace sources, at precisely 7:48 a.m. A statement was released through official palace channels. But unlike virtually every official royal communication in living memory, this statement did not come from a spokesperson, an office, a communications team, or a committee. It came directly from Prince William. That single detail changed everything. The statement announced the complete and permanent end to any future relationship between the Crown and the Duchess of Sussex. There was no diplomatic ambiguity, no carefully constructed language that left a door open for future reconciliation, no suggestion that circumstances might change or that the situation might be revisited. The door was closed, permanently, publicly, personally. Veteran royal correspondents who have spent decades covering the monarchy described it as something entirely without precedent. The BBC reported the news immediately. Sky News followed. ITV cut into morning programming. CNN pushed breaking news alerts across American screens. Within 4 minutes, Reuters had distributed a global bulletin. By 8 o'clock, the story had displaced every other news cycle on every major platform in the world. But here is what made William's decision so uniquely powerful and so strategically significant. He did not give a speech. He did not make emotional appeals. He did not reference past interviews, past documentaries, past grievances, past allegations. There were no personal feelings aired, no settling of scores, no reactive emotional language, just cold, administrative certainty. By avoiding personal drama, William created a vacuum that the media and the public had no immediate way to fill. There was nothing to push back against, no emotional language to dissect, no grievances to counter, just a fact stated plainly by the future King of England. The institution had spoken. The decision was not up for debate. And by making the announcement at 7:48 a.m., William ensured that the story hit British breakfast television, afternoon newsrooms across Asia, and late-night desks in North America simultaneously. There was no soft rollout, no quiet window for the other side to prepare a response. It was a media deployment of surgical precision. This was not a man acting impulsively. This was a future king executing a decision that had been prepared, according to those close to the palace, for a very long time. What Harry knows now, and what it means. Back in Montecito, the reaction has been described by those with knowledge of the situation in very specific terms. Harry is reportedly devastated, not angry in the way that people expected, not defiant, not immediately reaching for a microphone or a streaming platform to respond. Devastated. Because Princess Anne's confirmation of the Saudi Dossier's existence doesn't just expose Meghan to scrutiny. It exposes Harry to something far more painful. It exposes the very real possibility that the people he publicly accused of racism, institutional cruelty, and deliberate betrayal were, in fact, trying to protect him. Think about what he told the world in his memoir, Spare. Think about the Oprah interview. Think about the Netflix documentary. Think about every public statement he has made since leaving the royal family. The consistent, relentless narrative that his family rejected Meghan because of who she was, where she came from, and what she looked like. If the dossier is real, and Princess Anne is now saying publicly that it is, then the story Harry told the world looks fundamentally different. They didn't reject Meghan because of her race. They rejected her, or tried to, because of what a classified intelligence report told them about her pre-royal life, her financial history, her social connections, and what those connections suggested about the interests she might be serving. You can agree or disagree with that assessment. You can argue that the intelligence was flawed, that the conclusions were wrong, that the palace vetting process was biased. Those are all legitimate debates to have. But what you cannot escape is the timeline, and the silence, and the 11 words that Princess Anne reportedly said after this confirmation broke. The dossier exists, and we tried to tell him. 11 words, allegedly enough to reduce Harry to tears, because if they're true, then the entire architecture of the last 5 years, the memoir, the interviews, the documentaries, the legal battles, the broken family relationships, the exile from the only world he ever knew, all of it was built on a refusal to look at evidence that his own family tried to show him. The bigger picture, what this means for the monarchy. Step back from the personal drama for a moment and consider the institutional implications of what has just happened. The British monarchy has survived as a functioning institution for centuries through a combination of mystique, tradition, discipline, and the absolute unwavering maintenance of the principle of silence. You do not air your grievances in public. You do not expose internal conflicts to external scrutiny. You resolve your differences behind closed palace walls and present a united front to the world. Princess Anne, the most disciplined, most traditionally loyal senior royal of her generation, has just publicly demolished that principle. She did so not because she wanted to. She did so, by her own account, because she concluded that silence had become more dangerous than disclosure. That the institutional damage being done by an ongoing, coordinated campaign against the crown from within, allegedly involving both Meghan and Andrew, had reached a point where the alternative to speaking was watching the institution she had devoted her life to protecting be slowly destroyed. And now the palace faces a reckoning that its traditional playbook cannot handle. How do you respond to a family member of Anne's standing without destroying your own credibility? How do you maintain the mystique of the institution when its most trusted representative has confirmed that a classified intelligence dossier exists and that it was concealed from public view? How do you repair a family when the wounds are this deep and this public? The answer, frankly, is that there is no clean path forward. Whether you sympathize with Meghan, with Andrew, with Harry, or with the royal family's position, whether you believe the dossier's conclusions are justified or not, Princess Anne's revelation has introduced something into the public record that cannot be removed. The question of who Meghan Markle was before she met Prince Harry is no longer a fringe conspiracy theory entertained by anonymous bloggers. It is now, according to the most credible royal source imaginable, a matter of formal, documented, classified intelligence concern. And the question of what Harry knew, when he knew it, and why he chose to ignore it, that question is now impossible to avoid. The question history will ask. History will eventually judge every person in this story. It will judge the intelligence assessors who put together the dossier. It will judge the palace officials who presented it to Harry and watched him dismiss it. It will judge Harry for his decision to walk away from an institution that, whatever its many imperfections, was trying, in its own deeply complicated way, to protect him. It will judge Meghan for a past that the public is only now beginning to understand may be far more complex than the narrative she has crafted. It will judge Princess Anne for breaking the silence, and it will ask whether she was right to do so. And it will judge the institution itself for the question of whether the monarchy handled this situation wisely, ethically, and with the transparency that public life in the 21st century demands. But before history renders its verdict, there is one question you need to sit with right now. When someone who loves you, truly loves you, not the version of yourself you present to the world, but the complicated, vulnerable, imperfect reality of who you are. When that person tries to show you something difficult, something that challenges everything you believe about a relationship that means everything to you, do you look or do you bury it? Harry buried it. And now, years later, Princess Anne has dug it back up. The dossier exists, and she tried to tell him what comes next. This story is not over, not even close. The palace is operating in crisis mode. Legal proceedings are actively underway. The nature of Andrew and Meghan's alleged alliance, the full extent of the encrypted communications, the question of what information was shared and with whom. None of these threads have been fully pulled. Princess Anne did not confirm everything at Gatcombe Park. She confirmed enough to make the dossier undeniable and the questions unavoidable. But sources suggest that what she has held back may be even more significant than what she revealed. Prince William's public declaration of permanent separation from the Duchess of Sussex has drawn a line that protects the heir to the throne from further exposure. But it has also escalated the conflict to a level from which retreat is nearly impossible. And Harry, reportedly in pieces in Montecito, now faces a choice that will define the final chapter of his public story. He can continue to insist that the dossier was a fabrication, a weapon invented by a racist institution to destroy his marriage. Or he can confront the possibility that the truth is more complicated, more painful, and more personally implicating than anything he has ever been willing to acknowledge. What do you think he will do? And more importantly, what do you think the truth actually is? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is only just beginning, and the next chapter is going to change everything you think you know about the most dramatic royal story of the modern era. If this analysis reached you, share it. Because the people who need to hear this aren't just royal watchers. They are anyone who has ever been warned about something important and chosen not to listen. Subscribe for ongoing coverage, because I promise you, there is more coming. And when it does, you will want to be here.